when we come into that situation where they are forced to make dramatic changes inside of the business and maybe let go of something that they've been attached to for a long time, it's hard. It's absolutely hard. It destroys a person internally if their identity is wrapped around feeding cattle, for example. And I talk about my parents and losing everything. My dad's identity was wrapped up in being a cattleman. That was his life. That was his identity. That's what he thought he was going to do for the rest of his life. And when it all got taken away, his identity got ripped away from him as well. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Farm, the podcast. I'm your host, Jace D. Young, and today's topic in the session is this: stubborn with the vision, but flexible with the details. Now, this is a quote that I heard. I can't remember. It was a long time ago that this came out to me, but it's so true when it comes to what people face inside of the farming and ranching industry, right? We all get into this industry and just really into business in general, right? This isn't just specific to farming and ranching, but really any driven entrepreneur or business owner in the world, really. And we all get into what we're doing so that we can build something better for the next generation. Now, a lot of times though, we have this story in our mind of exactly how we're supposed to get there. It's important to have that, right? It's important to have that starting point there and things like that. One of the biggest issues is a lot of people, they have this vision for what they want their life to be, but they don't actually start the journey, right? Because they're too scared of outcomes or looking stupid or whatever. And I promise you, anything you try to start that you've never done before, yeah, you're going to suck in the beginning, but over time, you're going to get better. I'm a lot better on video now than I was back in 2017, the first time I held up a phone, and the freaking thing was shaking in my hand as I was getting ready to speak a message to, the world and really the marketplace that first time, right? All these stories and all these fears were coming up into my mind. All that stuff is obviously gone here. I've done thousands of hours of content, and just doing the reps over and over again is what is going to help you overcome those fears. But a lot of people, though, we want to, again, have this idea in our mind of exactly how we're supposed to get there. And we have this entire vision all the way planned out. And the thing is, though, is that a lot of people, that destroys a lot of people, right? Because when the exact steps that you have in your mind don't come to fruition exactly how you envisioned them, you start to tell yourself stories like you feel like a failure. Okay, so I'm going to give you a farming and ranching example. All of our customers are coming to Legacy Farmer. They're coming in because they want to either fix their operation and, there's several other reasons too, but the big one is finances and organization or team, communication. Like there's just a lot of things that we do in Legacy Farmer. If you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, we solve a lot of business issues. The biggest one is going to be financial side of things and training and educating people how to really master their finances and their business. Now, the thing is though, every one of them, again, wants to leave behind a legacy. Everybody wants to build a farm operation or a cattle operation that they can leave on to the next generation. The problem is, though, is that for some people, guys, they're too far gone inside of these businesses, and they're literally past the breaking point where it's like, okay, we have to change drastically right now and maybe even let go of one of these businesses. Otherwise, it's going to sink the family operation. Like it'll sink every business that they do have. And this has happened with a few different customers inside a Legacy Farmer over the years where they've had to make the decision to get rid of their livestock or the cattle operation because it was just sinking the farm operation. Right now, in today's prices, when I'm talking about this, obviously it'd be nice to have those things, but guess what? Very few people are actually selling today. So we've actually had several customers that have sold in the past 3 months here and actually walked away with pretty good profits on their livestock. But anyway, so everybody, again, when we come into that situation where they are forced to make dramatic changes inside of the business and maybe let go of something that they've been attached to for a long time, it's hard. It's absolutely hard. It destroys a person internally if their identity is wrapped around feeding cattle, for example. And I talk about my parents and losing everything. My dad's identity was wrapped up in being a cattleman and going down to the feed yard every day and just running that. That was his life. That was his identity. That's what he thought he was going to do for the rest of his life. And when it all got taken away, his identity got ripped away from him as well, right? So there was this point where that old version of himself had to essentially die and he had to step into a new version of himself as well. And again, that's really painful. So when I'm talking about having to, be in the position where we have to have conversations with some people that do come into Legacy Farm, it's like, okay, we have to consider the possibility of what it would look like if we let this part of the operation go. Now, when we go through those conversations, guys, and let's say we have to sell the cattle this year just so we can, turn all of our focus back over to other parts of the operation that are actually profitable and make sure that we're just spending our time on things that are making us money. Now, again, we want to be doing that because the long-term vision, which is passing on a legacy to the next generation, we got to focus on the short-term things that are actually going to help us get there. Now, again, if you have this locked in your mind that, hey, I'm going to pass on 3,000 acres of ground, plus I'm going to pass on the cattle operation, this is where I talk about being stubborn with the vision, which is passing on the legacy, but flexible with the details and how we get there. Now, when I go through this conversation with a customer and say they're at the breaking point and they got to sell something, right? Maybe we have to sell livestock or whatever that is, does not mean that they will never run livestock again in their life. Let's say they're in their 40s. Okay, great. Maybe we have to sell them short term so we can go button up some of these other areas of the business here and get really profitable and make sure everything is running smoothly. And then 5-10 years down the line, we can step back into cattle if we want to, right? Just because we're making short-term changes today doesn't mean that we'll never get back into that. And this is where, again, that identity can cost you a lot of money long-term if you are so stuck in your way of how you are going to realize this big vision. Now, when I'm talking about being stubborn with the vision is the legacy that you're leaving, right? The vision is the opportunity that you are leaving to the next generation. What does that look like, though? I don't know what ag's going to look like 50 years from now. Neither do you. It's going to be completely different than what it is today, though. That I'm certain of, and you probably are as well. So just because you have this idea in your mind that, hey, I want to pass on a farm operation plus a cattle operation, open up your mind a little bit, because again, the industry could look significantly different. What I want to pass on is wealth and opportunity to the next generation, no matter what that looks like. So this is where I'm talking about. I am stubborn on that vision, but here's the deal. I'm going to be flexible on how I get there, flexible on the details of how I get there and actually make that happen. And again, if I have to make short-term changes like selling my cattle for the next 5-10 years while I get other areas of the business really buttoned up and sound and everything, and then I can buy back in if I want to at that time, great, that's perfect. That's totally fine, right? But you have to be willing to do that. Most people today are not. And this is the problem, and why we will continue to see multiple family farm operations, hundreds of them every single year, go out of business, because if you're not willing to adapt today, eventually you'll die, right? The business will die. I mean, it's a requirement in today's market and just industry that we're currently in, with how many variables are going off every freaking day. You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to call out things that are not working and accept things that are not working, and be willing to change and willing to build new skill sets or relationships or new businesses. You have to become a very well-rounded business owner. You can't just know how to raise livestock or, grow a crop or whatever. You have to be a well-rounded business owner that understands the visionary seat. This is something we talk about inside of Legacy Farmer. Understanding the visionary seat and what those roles and responsibilities are, the integrator, then also your sales and marketing, your operations, your finance seat. You have to understand what is going on in all those seats here. And when you do, you're going to be more open to changing things, because you're not going to be so stuck in the operation seat and just working cattle every day or farming every year or whatever that may be, to where you are now open to making changes. Again, stubborn on the vision. This is where I want to take my family. I want to leave behind wealth, knowledge, and ultimately opportunity for them. But I'm going to be flexible on how I get there. And the thing is when you're flexible with the details on how you get there, to me, that's really accepting the plan that God has for you. Because even with me, I want the same thing as far as my vision goes, is what I've just shared there. But what if Legacy Farmer is just a stepping stone for me that God has in play to get me to the next thing? I have to be open to those things and be willing to adapt or change when those opportunities do come up in my life. And not even really opportunities, probably they're better described as doors that God is opening for me and going forward. And maybe I'm doing something completely different, or again, maybe this is, Legacy Farmer is a stepping stone to get us to the point to where I can have a bigger impact on the industry in another way after this. I don't know what that looks like, but the thing is though, is I want to be open and willing to adapt if it is necessary to do that, and just trusting in God's plan, ultimately knowing and believing deep in my soul that He is leading me towards that long-term vision, because I know He is, but I'm also going to be stubborn whether He is or not. And again, stubborn on the vision, but flexible on the details that are ultimately going to get us there. So my friends, hope you found value in this episode. I hope it made you look at your business a little bit differently, because most of you listening to this right now or watching this, you are going to most likely be in the place to where certain parts of the business are not working. You have holes in the business, talking about those seats that I talked about, marketing and sales, operations, or your finance seat. The finance seat is a big problem, obviously, for a majority of people inside the ag industry. And that's the one seat that they avoid. And that's also the one seat where we can fix all the problems and get absolute clarity on exactly what moves we need to make inside of the business, which is why we built Legacy Farmer and our software Farmer Metrics, and have been helping people with that. So guys, at the end of the day, if there's problems in the business, take action. I don't care what that is. Just take action and fix the freaking problem. And again, be flexible with the details, but stubborn on your vision of what you want to build for yourself and your family, and go get it done. Plain and simple. And it's not going to be easy. And guess what? The people that do arrive at that vision and actually make that happen, no part of that journey is going to be easy. And that's what's going to make it worth it. And that's what's going to make you step out and stand out from the rest of the crowd. Because again, 99% of people, they're just not going to do it. They're not going to be willing to change and adapt and be different inside of this industry that is constantly changing every single day. And it demands adaptability in order to succeed and thrive long term. So my friends, that concludes today's episode. Hope you found it valuable. We'll catch you on the next one.